Good evening, Fairlawn. This is Miss Allen. I'm outside of Fairlawn. I'm going to read you a book on this bright sunny day. This is called Alligator Cookies by James Young. It was cold, it was wet, it was damp, it was dismal. The whole day was ruined, the whole day abysmal. Our toys were all boring, the TV just static, so we crept up to see what we'd find in the attic. Now up in the attic was Uncle Ned's trunk. It had sat there for years till its hinges had shrunk. Dear Uncle Ned, who had traveled so far, from Alakazam to Zanzibar. Poor Uncle Ned, swallowed up by a shark, and all that was left was his trunk in the dark. Now Uncle Ned's trunk, it was old, it was dusty, was covered with mold, and the lock was all rusty. But the key was still there, and it turned when we tried it. We opened the trunk, and we both looked inside it. Inside there was nothing except for a scrap of torn yellow paper. Could this be a map? Would this lead to treasure, to diamonds and gold, like all of the stories that we had been told, of pirates roaming the seas for their pleasure, pillaging ships and burying treasure? But it wasn't a map left by our Uncle Ned. It was just an old recipe instead for alligator cookies. How incredible! But how could we make them? And would they be edible? The recipe called for 2 tadpoles, a touch of raw turnip, and pickles, but don't use too much. And barnacles, butterflies, buttons, and beans, and dirty shoelaces, and sassafras greens. 3-week-old potatoes, 4 grasshopper legs, and 5 caterpillars, 6 hummingbird eggs. And last but not least, now and not later, we'd need a full-grown alligator. Ooh, I don't know if these cookies are going to be very good. But where would we find one? Where, how, and when? We looked in the bathroom. We looked in the den. We'd looked in the kitchen. We'd looked in the cellar. We just couldn't find that long green feller. We looked in the backyard. We looked in the porch. Even old Hooser joined in the hunt. We looked high and low. We looked all around. Alligators? There were none to be found. We looked in the park and we looked in the zoo, but the zookeeper said, "There are none here for you." There weren't any alligators anywhere. We had not known they were so rare. We couldn't make cookies our whole day. Our whole day was through, nothing to eat and nothing to do, when suddenly Hooser started to bark, and something that moved, something there in the dark. And to our surprise, right before our own eyes, out jumped an alligator full size with a long green tail and covered with scales all the way down to his fingernails. So you thought you'd make cookies out of me? And what if I should disagree? Where would you run? What would you do if I tried to make cookies out of you two? Well, I won't. No, I won't. That just isn't my way. I never eat children, at least not today. And I know a recipe better by far than one Uncle Ned found in Zanzibar. And you don't need buttons, you don't need beans, no dirty shoelaces, no sassafras greens, no pickles, no potatoes, no grasshopper legs, no tadpoles, no turnips, no hummingbird eggs. And when you make them, you don't have to beat them, you don't have to bake them, you just have to eat them. You'll find they are scrumptious, delightful, sublime, cookies to eat anywhere, anytime. So chewy, so tasty, so green, so nutritious. Alligator cookies are truly delicious. Here is the recipe for alligator cookies. If you guys want to zoom in on this, maybe you can make alligator cookies sometime. That is the end. I'll see you guys all tomorrow at school. Have a great rest of your weekend.